Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's okay, so with Ideal. On today's tutorial I will share with you guys how I made this beautiful Bubu gown that has pleats around the waistline or around the hip line. If that is what you're interested in, make sure you stick to the end and don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Let's get started with the tutorial. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric. I have 4 yards of Mikado fabric here, and I marked the length of my dress, which is about 65 inches, and then I folded the remaining one. So if you look closely, you will see that the other part is longer than the other side. So the longer part is going to serve as our front line or our front piece, because we need to pleat the front. Then the one that has our actual length is going to be the back. So what I have here is about 60 plus 5 or 4 inches, so that's about 64 inches for the full dress, and that includes the hemming. All right, so while the other one, which is longer, that's our front, is longer by about 11 to 12 inches. Okay, so the way you're going to be folding your fabric is you're going to be folding by the yardage, then fold again into 4, because you don't want the shoulder to have open or slit. So the shoulder is going to be closed. So that's the way you're going to fold it. So what I have here is 4 yards. So you're going to be making use of 4 yards, unless you're in a smaller size like you're short, then you probably might not use up to 4 yards, but I will advise you get 4 yards. All right, so that's what I did here. And I'm also measuring to show you guys that what I have remaining for the front side, which is the longer part, is about 11 to 12 inches, and I'm just going to trim off the excess there. So if you don't understand how I fold it, just come back to this video and watch again. Fold by the yardage of a fabric, and then before you fold that, make sure you measure your actual length. Then the remaining one should be the excess, which will be pleating for the front. I hope that makes sense. So this short part is going to serve as our back piece, and that's why I'm labeling it as B. So that is our back, and we'll be drafting on that for now. Then the inside one is the front. That is the part that is longer. Okay, so that is now our front piece. All right, so now let's get started with the drafting. Now I'm going to mark my neck width. Remember, this is the front and the back together, so we are cutting the neck width first. We are marking this at the back. Later we'll do some things later. Now I went ahead to mark 3 inches. You can use 2.5 if you don't want your neckline to be too big, but you can use 2.5 or 3 inches. So I marked 3 inches neck width, and then I marked about 1.5 neck depth for the back. Okay, and I will just go ahead and connect that. Now after connecting this, we are going to leave the front markings for now, right? So we're just going to mark the back, finish, and then cut. Then I'll show you guys what next to do. Now for the sleeve, I'm going to be using the whole of the fabric, and what I have there was about 25 to 26 inches, excluding the edge of the fabric. Okay, so because we're going to probably cut that out, but you won't be adding that to your measurement. Now after doing that, around that point you're going to mark out our sleeve opening. Now because this part is going to have elastic band, you want it to be bigger, so I marked about, I think I marked about 20 inches. Okay, you can mark from 16 to 20 inches depending on how big or how big you want your sleeve to be. Yeah, so now from there, from the shoulder, I'm going to be marking my waistline as a guide first. All right, we're not making use of that, but I'm just going to mark it as a guide first. Then I will mark my hip line. Okay, so I will go ahead and mark my waistline there, which is 18 inches, and then I'll come down by 10 inches for my hip line, and then from there I'm going to also mark my knee line. All right, so it is important you mark your hip line and your knee line. So I'm cross-checking this to be sure that that is what I have. Then I'm going to come down from the hip line by about 15 inches. You can come down 15, 14, or even 13 depending on your length, how tall you are. Okay, so I came down that point, and that serves as my knee line, and I'm just going to connect all this line for it to be visible for you guys to see. So what I have in the first line is my hip line, while the second one is my knee line. All right, so it is important you know those parts. Now having done that, what the next thing we are going to be doing is we're going to determine how big we want our bubble to be. All right, so now I'm just going to extend that sleeve inside a little, so we know that that is where our sleeve stops at. So around that point that the sleeve stops at, we're going to be marking our measurement. You're going to be using the widest part of your body measurement, then add as much allowance you want to. Now for this, I just marked from the beginning 20 inches. Okay, so this 20 inches is like It's not a standard, but it can fit almost all sizes. But if you don't want yours to be too big, what you just do is to get the fullest part of your body, divide it by 4, and then you can add from 4 to 5 inches and so on. All right, so I marked that 20 around that sleeve point, and then around my hip line I increase it a little. Initially I wanted to have like a cow neck effect, so a cow shape, sorry, not a cow neck, a cow shape, but I didn't do it anymore. So you can just mark your hip line, mark the same measurement you marked around that armhole line, and then on your knee line you mark the same measurements. Then at the hem of your at the end of your gown or your fabric, you're going to be marking about 16 inches to 18 inches. Okay, so this part is supposed to be smaller than the other part, which is around the hip line and the knee line. Do you get? So you're going to be marking from 16 to 18 inches. So for me, I marked 16 inches. I'll be 17 inches around the end of my fabric, and then around the knee I marked the same measurement, which is on my hip line and around the armhole line or the sleeve point I marked 20 inches. So but you can use that 20 inches for the hip line and the knee line because it's still very much okay. All right, so I'm just going to connect all those points together, and yeah, that is it, nothing serious again. And after connecting this point, you're going to go ahead and curve out your sleeve joining. Okay, you don't want that point to look the way it is, you just have to curve a little. You can go in by at that edge, by at that arc, like you can come out by 1.5 to 2 inches to create that curve that I did around that armhole line. So that is what I did there, and that's what we have so far. So now we are done doing this, and we are going to go ahead and cut. All right, after cutting we'll flip it to the other side and mark the front measurement. Remember, this is the front and the back together, and you cannot mark the front the same way, you cannot mark it at the same time because they are different. The neckline is different and the length is different, so you have to take note of that. I'll go ahead and cut out this piece, and then we'll work on the front part. All right, so just go ahead and do what I'm doing as you're seeing, and then I'll also go ahead and cut out the neckline like seen. Now the next thing we need to do is to open up our gown or our piece, and then remember this, the inside one is our front, that's the longer part. So I'm going to switch this, like fold it to the front side, so the back is now the one that is inside, is what is fitting inside. Now this is the outside, that's the front. Okay, so this is the front part. So now we are going to go ahead and mark our front neckline. I came down from the initial neckline for the back by 1.5, that's supposed to be 3 inches, but it's not important. All right, there will be no need for this, but just go ahead and do it if you want to, but it doesn't affect anything. Then I'll connect it back to the neckline, and after doing that, from the shoulder I'm going to be coming down by I'm going to be coming down to my waistline, which is 18 inches. Now this is where the cape of the sleeve is going to stop. I don't know if I should call that cape, or the turning of the sleeve is going to stop. So if you want yours to be lower, you can do that. If you want it to be longer, you can do that as well. So around that waistline I came in by 2 inches. You can come in by 1 or 1.5, depending on how wide you want it to be. So for me, I wanted it to be 4 inches, but initially I wanted it to, be around 3.5, but I decided to increase it up to 4 inches. So you can do yours, it is optional. Your measurements and how you want it is what you will determine how much you're going to be going in. So you can go in from 1 inch to 2 inches. Okay, so I went in by 2 inches. I'm going to connect that to the tip of the neckline, so that's going to have as our front neckline. So we're going to be turning this. I don't know, when we get to the stage you understand what I'm saying, but we're just going to use a stretch ruler to connect that. I went ahead to use pin to secure my pieces. It is important to do this because this fabric can be, can be crazy sometimes. So I'll just go ahead and use my ruler to connect it to the neck, to the tip of the neck, and then that's what we have now. So we need to cut out this for the front neckline, and for us to do that we need to open up the pieces. Okay, we need to open up and then remove the back side, keep it aside, like shift it and then cut the front. Just watch what I'm going to be doing and you understand. Now before that, it is important to take note of the excess you have for the front, so that you will know how much you're going to be pleating. All right, so for me that's about 11 to 12 inches, so you know that you're going to be pleating about 12 inches or even more. depending on you. So now after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and write that down. I was writing it down at this point because I didn't want to forget it. And then what I'm going to be doing next is to flip the open up the gown or the fabric and flip or remove the back side so we can cut the front. So just watch what I'm doing. This is the back. Remember, if you see where I wrote B, that's the back. So I'm going to be removing that back part alone, and you're going to see what I'm doing here now. So I'm going to be flipping that, or I'm removing it, and then we'll have just the front. So this is the back side. You can see where the front neckline is. So I'm going to be folding that part, making sure that each neckline is matching each neckline. You can see that I ironed this, so it's important to iron. I didn't have so much light to iron all of this, but it's important you iron. If you iron it, to be less stressful for you. So I'm going to be matching the shoulders to each other. That will be a guide for you. All right, so we are going to be matching the shoulders together and follow the line, the middle or the center line if you ironed yours, and then we are going to cut out the front piece or the front neckline. Okay, so you're just going to go ahead and make sure that everything is flat and properly laid. Then you would go ahead to cut that out, and that's just it. After cutting that, we're going to give the arc, we're going to give like a slight notch, or I don't know how to put it, but we're just going to give a notch around the arc of that sleeve end, sorry, the neckline end. God, I beg, just watch what I'm doing. Okay, you understand if you watch closely. So that's what I'm talking about. That point now, we're going to go in by half an inch so that by the time we are sewing, it's going to relax well. Very simple, right? Good. So after doing this, now this is what we have so far. Now we'll have to measure what we have from the back neckline to the front, so we can be able to cut out our turning, or our neckline turning or cape, whatever you call it. Okay, so just go ahead and slowly measure all the edges together, and then whatever you have, that's what you're going to be using to cut the neckline turning. Okay, so for me, I think I had about 22 or so. I don't remember, about 22 to 25 inches. And then I'll also go ahead and open it up to measure the center. What I have there, it's supposed to be 4 inches, but it's about 4.5. So you can imagine, sometimes if you're cutting this, make sure you're cutting smaller so that it doesn't end up becoming too big. Okay, so we're going to take note of that. Now I've gone ahead to fold a piece of this fabric as well, and I'm going to be measuring my neckline. Remember, what we measured was about 22 or so, or 23. Let's assume it's 22 inches. You can go ahead to add extra 3 inches to your measurement. All right, 3 to 4 inches including allowance. Okay, so that it is easier for you to turn and you still have some excesses. You can trim that off later. It's always better you have more than less. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark that point. So that's where my sleeve length, why do I keep calling it sleeve? That's where my neckline length is going to be. Sorry if I keep mixing up sleeve. It's not sleeve, it's neckline. Then I'm going to, from the center, I'm going to be marking out how wide I want it to be, but I want to cut out that part. I don't want that edge to be there, so I'm going to cut that out. And then remember that the neckline around the waist is about 4.5, so it is important you measure that 4.5 inches, all right, plus 1 inch. Okay, so you measure the 4.5 plus 1 inch, and you're also going to go ahead and measure it to the other side and connect into a straight line. So that will help you to determine how much you're going to be cutting. All right, so remember, this is on fold. Good, unfold please, so that I can go around the neckline. Now after cutting it out, this is what I have, and the next thing I'm going to be doing is I will measure 14 inches from the folded part, and I will go ahead and mark that out. And after marking it out, I'll divide that into two. So I'll connect into a straight line, then I'll divide that point into two and divide it into two. Okay, so we're going to be stitching around the marked line, leaving the 14 inches that we marked untouched. All right, so that's going to be like the neckline, that the part that we're going to be wearing from our neck or from our head. Then the other part is going to be around the bodies and the waistline. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. Okay, so what I just explained now is what I am doing, and we're just going to go ahead and connect all the points. Please make sure that you're doing this correctly, because if you make any mistake, you're on your own. Now after doing that, you also want to go ahead and put stay or gum stay or whatever you add to it, but I didn't do that. This is optional. My fabric is already thick, so it doesn't really do anything. Now I've gone ahead to sew it. Like you can see that 14 is where the opening is. That's where it's going to pass through your head. Now we need to attach this to our gown. So I'm going to be opening my fabric or my gown like so, and then we'll go ahead and notch the center back. All right, so I'll fold that. Already I have the part that is showing as a center back, but you can go ahead and fold just then notch it out like that, and then we're going to get our neck. We're going to get our neckline turning or whatever, and then we're also going to notch the center of it so we can match it to the center back as well. Okay, so I'm going to be matching the center back with the center back notch and the center of the cape of the turning jerry, and then I'm going to sew it all to the end of the neckline towards the waistline, leaving the other side open. Now after doing that, make sure you iron yours. Please, I didn't iron mine. Now after doing that, this is what we have. You can see that this part is open, so you're going to flip your fabric like so, and then stitch around that point by half an inch, or 0.25, depending on what you have there. You're going to stitch that out, and after doing that, you're going to go ahead and iron it very well. Now the next thing we're going to do is to turn our sleeve, fold it, leaving some allowance for our elastic band. Okay, now I've gone ahead to do that, and I've put my elastic band on the sleeves, and I've also sewn this part, as you can see. Now we need to pleat that excess we have for the front, and now you're going to indicate where the center front is. Okay, so for me, I'm making use of the neckline, or the neckline towards the waistline, as you're seeing the center there, so that's going to be our center. We're going to use that as guide. So from there, from that waist, I'm going to come down by 3 inches. Depends on if you want your pleating to start from the waist, that is to start directly from that waist, which is 18. So if you want yours to start from there, just go ahead and just from there mark the 12 inches which you have as the excess for the front, and then you pleat. But if you don't want yours to start from the waist directly, just going to go ahead and mark 3 inches from that waist down, and then you're going to mark your 12 inches and then pleat by half inch or 1 inch, depending on how many pleats you want to have. So I'm just illustrating what you're going to be doing if you don't want it to start from the waist. But if you want to start from the waist, just go ahead from there, pleat and pleat and pleat. Please make sure you pleat enough, in the sense that after pleating, those excess that you had or you kept for the front is going to go away. In most cases, after pleating, you might still have some excess, maybe like 1 to 2 inches or 3. That's not a problem. Okay, just go ahead and trim it off because you've done the major thing. So now I'm just still cross checking what I have here to be sure that I want it in a certain way. So I know I wanted it from the 3 inches, so that's why I did. You can go ahead and see that I've pleated mine, and I had about maybe 4 to 5 pleats. And yes, this is what I have. Make sure you iron yours, so very important. Now I'm going ahead to sew a rope that's going to be for the waist snatching. So I'm going to flip this to the wrong side, and then remember I'm making use of that center. Okay, the center marking is showing, that's the middle of the front. So you're going to be using that waist, that place at the neck turning stop, that is our waist. So please, that's from shoulder to 18 inches, that's our waist. So around that point is where we are going to be attaching this. If you don't want yours to be, maybe you want your belt to be maybe a little bit higher than your actual waist, please go ahead and do that. And then from the center, I'm going to indicate or divide my waist measurement by 2. So my waist measurement is 33 inches, divided by 4 is 8.25. So from one end I marked 8.25, while the other side I marked 8.25. That means now I have my measurement divided into 2. Very simple. Please, if you don't understand, let me know in the comment section. So I'll go ahead to mark that, and I'll go ahead and sew my band or my rope. You see how I'm placing it towards the side? So I'm going to be sewing it towards the side, it's facing the side. And after sewing that, we're also going to go ahead and join our sleeve down to the hem of the clothes, and then we're also going to leave about 18 inches to the hem, towards the end of this towards the end of the gown, which is going to be the opening, because it has to have an opening at the side. And then after doing that, this is what we'll have. And I will also go ahead and notch the opening that I left around the hemline, and then we are going to fold that part and also fold the end of the gown. If you watched this far, thank you so much for joining. See you in my next tutorial. Bye.